So here we are. A great pleasure to be here today with one of my favorite people in the UK in the life planning movement. When I first met him, I mean, I was stunned because I thought, boy, I'm seeing a leader here in the life planning movement. And it was before he'd taken any of the programs that I was aware of. But it was wonderful to have that engagement. It was an engagement where I was speaking and we had some time together. At a little bite to eat we had. But even more, during the engagement, Amyr's eyes and questions and comments were so on that as I said, I felt I'm seeing a new leader emerge in the life planning community.
That's very kind of you, George.
Well, it's true. And since then, Amyr Rocha Lima has invited me to speak at a conference in London, where I have already spoken, where I expanded from life planning to mindfulness and the golden civilization. So he's here today to share whatever he likes, but I know that one of the things he shared with me just a minute ago is that he's scribbled all over the book that he has of the golden civilization with lots of questions and thoughts. So I know he's thought about it deeply, and so I just want to welcome Amyr.
Thank you. Thank you very much, George.
Good to be here with you.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, and I really appreciate the invitation. That's very kind of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And maybe just catch me up on where you are right now in your life, what's happening, and then anything you feel like sharing about the golden civilization and your experience.
Absolutely. Okay, so yes, for the listeners there, so my name is Amyr Rocha Lima. I'm a financial planner here in the UK. I started off my financial planning career with big corporates, and then now I'm working as a partner in an independent financial planning firm focused mainly on retirement planning. So perhaps that's the first unusual thing about me, apart from my name, is the fact that I'm in my mid-30s and I work pretty much exclusively with clients who are wanting to enter their retirement years. But there's a massive advantage in doing that because, of course, they know that I'll be here with them. I won't be planning my retirement as they're planning their retirement. And when that clicks, I think they think, well, I think we found our guy. So I started off very much focusing on the technical side of financial planning. George, you've used a quote before in one of your books, or I've definitely seen you say it before, and it's a quote from Rumi that goes something like, yesterday I was clever and wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise and I want to change myself. So I started with the wanting to change the world. I wanted to be the best technical financial planner anybody could ever find. And that was great. And as I was getting towards that point in my career, or I felt I was getting towards that point in my career, I realized that a lot of the stuff that I was learning was being commoditized. All of the technical investment management techniques that I had learned, well, there were algorithms that can do it better than me, quicker than me, more consistently than me, and more importantly, more cost efficiently than me, which led me to try to understand, by speaking to other people that I respected in the UK financial planning community, what next? And those folks inevitably drove me to meeting you. So that what next was to then focus on what some people call the soft skills side of financial planning. I just call it more around the changing myself, rather than just trying to change or leverage the technicalities of the tax system or financial planning as a whole. And that's where I started matching my life story with what I do for a living every day, and just realizing that my power is in getting my client to be the hero of their journey and then help them deliver themselves really into a retirement that is filled with dignity and independence.
Yeah,
that's it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Amyr. Sounds like you found really the right place for yourself in all of this.
Still striving towards it, George. I don't think I'll ever achieve the person I think I want to be, but I'm always chasing that person or that vision or that thing. And that leads me into all sorts of different rabbit holes, including speaking with, as much as I can, the father of life planning himself, George Kinder.
Well, becoming the person that you really want to be, maybe we should do some life planning with you and do Louis' famous two hands. Here's the one that you are right now, and here's who you want to be. Which do you choose?
It's powerful stuff. Having experienced that myself, that is powerful.
Very powerful.
Yes.
So it's an ongoing process, and for me as well, I would revisit what we know as the three questions. Periodically. I still do them once a year or so, come back and look at them and rethink, am I really on target for being the person that I want to be? So
which brings us to the second, apologies to butt in, but that brings me to the second part of your question there, which was my thoughts around the golden civilization.
Great.
In a simple nutshell answer, I think it could only come from somebody like you. And I'm going to be completely blunt here. I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your what's it. I mean, that's not the point. The point is, if I understood the book correctly, you have aimed to life plan civilization. So that is the biggest life plan of them all. And my interpretation of that, George, is, okay, well, there are massive obstacles. That's the first thing. Like, boom, obstacles all over. And then you start to break down back to Rumi's quote of, well, yesterday I was clever and I tried to change the world. Today I'm wise and I want to change myself. Well, okay, well, hang on a second. How can I do this at my level, in my community, with my clients? Right? And then maybe leverage the fact that the movement of life planning empowers a whole bunch of other people around the world to, again, just create a little ripple in their own community. And then suddenly the obstacles just start coming down. And you're like, hang on a second. This is huge because it can be a lot of little bits that make it huge. Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm thinking, Amyr, and it's really interesting to think that way. And I don't know that everybody's really gotten that, but it's if the vision is understood by all of us, by the little bits, as you say, the little bit of each of us individually standing in our world. I was on a conversation, I was interviewed yesterday on a podcast by a really remarkable woman, Hillary Hendershot. I don't know if you've heard her podcast, but they're marvelous. And so she was, again, questioning, she was going, well, gosh, maybe democracy isn't it? Maybe we need a benevolent dictator. And I said, no, we can do this. We can do this. And it is that belief that each of us individually, if we really have the vision of what a golden civilization really looks like, and we tend to share that vision, and then we come down and just do it in our own domain. And how much, we wrestle with the arrogance of the world or the mean-spiritedness or the violence and all of that, and how much of that could really be dealt with starting in primary school at the very base, really taught mindfulness practices, emotional intelligence practices. And I was fantasizing this morning about how you would do that in education. And one of the thoughts is, the old thought is, well, you get people up the top, the hierarchy, to make that decision. And I thought, no, that's the old way. What we want to do is we want the people at the top, yes, but we want all the people down the hierarchy and right down to the base. So you want to get the students together and them figuring it out, and you want the teachers to come together and them figuring it out. Then you want the principals and the administrators to get together and them figuring it out, and everybody together making this wonderful, wonderful world that we know we really deserve. So,
yeah, I think that's beautiful, George. And I think that for me is definitely one of the bits I've highlighted in the book that I need to explore further. And I think I've taken on board in my own micro level way, but it's this business of the connections that you've just spoken about there, if that's the word I'm looking for. But, when I first engaged with your program on understanding what life planning was and getting myself life planned through the Evoke program, I kept hearing this phrase or this way of transforming suffering into wisdom and then wisdom into mindfulness. And I just always stopped at the suffering. I'm like, well, hang on a second. If anything, I've won the lottery. I've got no suffering. I look around the world and that's real suffering. I'm originally from Brazil, and even some of the suffering I've seen in Brazil doesn't compare to the suffering that we see in some other remote parts of the world. But then I got it. And I think that's what you mean there. It's the suffering doesn't necessarily need to be the thing that we perceive to be as suffering. The suffering might be the work, i.e. the work to transform all this stuff we're seeing into wisdom, which is already a massive filter. And then to be mindful of that wisdom in our day-to-day lives, right? And then through that, you then match that wisdom. In my case, in my small little microcosm, I match that wisdom with trying to get my client to see their story, and then matching their numbers to their story, which leads to that life of dignity and independence in retirement. You know, dignity because they can be the person they want to be, and independence because they can do the things they want to do. And that fires the torch that we talk about when it comes to their dreams, the legacy aspirations they have, et cetera, et cetera. So it's still taking me a while to get there. But in doing so, I think I'm figuring these things out in the practice, in the work of what we aim to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And wisdom, as you described it, and as you're thinking about it, is really key. We can feel it inside ourselves around things that we know. It's hard to know exactly what it is, but we also know where it's absent. We know that it really is absent at the top of the hierarchies of power in the world. We know that it's absent in much of our government, in much of our corporate life. It's absent. And so if we begin to understand it inside ourselves, and one of the things that you do in your work as a life planner is you bring your clients to greater wisdom about themselves and far greater self-knowledge, because what you're doing is you're opening up who is it that they feel that they're really meant to be. And when we open those realms up, we're really opening wisdom into the world to enter, just enter into the world. And if we can do that everywhere, then we can begin to change the systems that have, or the structures that have blocked wisdom from entering. And
you, when we've previously spoken about this, George, you mentioned the concept of the entrepreneurial spirit that we can release through life planning. And again, the first time I heard that, I thought, okay, I need to mentally highlight this. I don't understand it yet, but I need to mentally highlight this. And in the work of doing life planning and financial planning for clients, I now see it. And now they're small ripples. It's somebody perhaps giving up a high-powered but high-stress corporate job in the City of London and commuting less and setting up their own consultancy business, or changing careers completely and setting up something with their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law, or their son or daughter, in fact. Right. That releases energy. So imagine that little ripple multiplied worldwide. Yeah. That's a huge amount of energy. That, you're absolutely right. It changes the culture, let alone how we then behave within that culture, who we elect to help us maintain that culture. It just massive domino effect. Yes. And between you and I, that started perhaps with a phrase that I went, I need to mentally highlight this, take it back home and just marinate on it a bit. Yeah. And I guess, again, all I try to do is, in my own work, give people those little mental highlightable bits that they marinate on and then act upon in their life plan. And then within the financial planning community is to shout out about the fact that there is training out there to help you be able to deliver this to people. And it's great when you get to do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Amyr, the entrepreneurial spirit. Most of the educated world, when they hear entrepreneurial, they think it's about venture capital, private equity. It's about business in some way. And I use the term intentionally because in a way, the business elite structures have robbed the rest of us of understanding that we all have this passion for life, for living with great vitality and for making a difference wherever we are, whether it's just with our baby, our infant, our child, or our backyard, if we're lucky enough to have one, or as you say, set up an independent business somewhere for ourselves. But each of us has a passion to live with great vitality in the world. Maybe it's to do art, maybe it's to sing, but all of that, if we have that as a feeling of freedom inside of ourselves, reaching out into the world, that's what I call entrepreneurial spirit or entrepreneurial energy. And you're right, if everybody in the world had that kind of vitality, we wouldn't be worried about growth in an economy, because the economy would just sing.
For sure.
Yeah. What else came up as you were reading? What were the questions or
Well,
that you recall?
I think there are a couple of other things that I think in highlighting, I could find examples of, and they're not related to financial planning or the book, but for some reason I made a link. And there are also a couple of things that, whilst I've got some time with you, albeit in a Facebook Live meeting, I wouldn't mind asking you your opinion on or your views on. But the book obviously mentions the word legacy quite a few times, and it does so in a way where you ask us to imagine a civilization way, way, way in the future, and how that would look like if we took control of our life plans today, and just the massive butterfly effect of that over multiple generations. And I love that, and I saw that the other day in reverse. In other words, where a whole team, they engage in a process where they try to bring the legacy of all of their ancestors into today. Wow. And I saw that as a very casual rugby spectator. So for those who don't know, at the moment, the Rugby World Cup is being played in Japan. England, of course, is a big rugby nation, as are some of the Commonwealth effectively has a lot of rugby playing nations. I'm a casual rugby spectator. I don't profess to understand the game all that well, but England plays New Zealand, and New Zealand are considered to be the all-time best rugby team in the world. Now, what the New Zealand or the Kiwi team, the All Blacks, what they engage in before a game is in this almost tribal process called the Haka. So they do this, and again, please, for the New Zealanders that are watching this, please forgive me for my ignorance around the process, but the very little I understand about it, and it's very visceral when you watch it. It really is moving. They engage in a process where they do this almost tribal dance, warrior dance, to the team they're playing against. And there's a particular part in this process where they almost do like a fist pump, but to the ground. And when they touch the ground with their fists, you can see that body language is telling the team they're confronting, look, you're not just playing us. You're playing everybody that came before us to mean that we're here today. Wow. It's absolutely amazing. Now, this is available on YouTube. I'll urge your viewers to go and just type New Zealand rugby team Haka, Haka. So my question to you is this, George. So that was a long-winded context to what I'm just about to pose to you now. So in dealing with financial planning and retirement planning, it's inevitable that we see a lot of people that have a lot of money. And some of these people, all they have is a lot of money. And I stress that, hopefully I've nuanced that phrase correctly. They actually come to a point where they realize that they don't have much else apart from all of this money. How do you see us, individual life planners, financial planners, or life planners that don't engage in financial planning, helping all of that energy that at the moment is just ring-fenced around a monetary figure, be released into the world, into something bigger?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, there's another story about touching the earth like that. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Amyr, but I talk about it sometimes when I lead week-long silent meditation or mindfulness retreats. And it's a moment when one of the great spiritual teachers in the past was challenged by demons or Mara or Satan, however you want to, but desires and aversions all around him. And this was the Buddha on the night of his enlightenment, or the night of his awakening. And he was really swarmed by these passions that were unproductive and were challenging him in his desire to become awake, to become enlightened, to become free, really. And of course, we're dealing with freedom all the time in life planning, and the desire to be free. And what he did in the final moment where he was awakened was just like the rugby team in New Zealand. He's sitting there in a full lotus position, and he reaches down with one of his hands and he touches the earth. And it's like this grounding of electricity, there's this something, but really what it was, it's very similar to how you're describing this experience. He was calling on all the forces of nature to support his right to be authentic, to be free, to be enlightened, to be himself, calling on all the forces of nature. And there's a way in which, when we're dealing with the clients that are bundled up around their money like this, that we do that. And the drill in a way. I mean, the first thing that we do, and the primary thing that we do, the thing that I think we do better than anything else as life planners, is that we listen. So we're just there listening. And often those people, as you're describing them, have never really been listened to before. And it may take meeting after meeting, even year after year, for them to open and realize what's going on in that meeting, that you're really listening to who they are, and that you're there in a way that really wants them to be themselves, to be fully who they are. So the listening is kind of the most important thing. And I know from the 5-day training how much we teach the pause, allowing space, particularly wherever there's a feeling in the room. And so it's the listening that allows that movement to begin to happen. And then, as you know, in the second meeting, we have all these questions: ideal day, ideal week, ideal year, the 3 questions that we're famous for, a few other things. So those are meant to kind of, once that listening has taken hold, for the client to begin to articulate and for you to have a conversation, more rapid conversation as to what would be fun, what would be a thrill. And then, you get into this question of, well, what would be deep? What would be, as you started off this whole frame, what would be legacy for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it goes through that whole bit. And I think we provide it, and sometimes we require a lot of patience to bring it forth, just knowing that they're where they are in the moment, and all we are is a facilitative vehicle to give them the opportunity to expand and begin to find more life for themselves in the remaining years that they have.
And I think that's what I most love about this, George, is when you change that order of hierarchy in the client's mind. Well, I'll say that again, sorry. When you help them see that the order of hierarchy they have in their mind perhaps is twisted, and no one politician, I don't care which party, but no one politician is going to save you. No one guru is going to save you. No one product is going to make you retire with financial peace of mind and confidence. It really is the work, the process of figuring out what really is important to you, and then letting go of some of the things that are not and are just noise, and focusing your energy on the things that are important to you. It's just immense, because I then feel that in my work, I'm getting to do my bit for this whole community around the world of people who are trying to create this humongous wave around it. It actually is a meaningful bit that you get to do with that person, and the impact it has on their life. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is. It really is. Well, we're coming toward the end of time today, Amyr. Is there anything else that stands out for you, either as a question or as a comment in this last bit? Yeah.
I just as a comment, I think the key of everything that I've learned from you, and what I try, the way I try to apply it to my clients, is this process, which of course I call the financial planning process, because it inevitably ends with matching their life with their money.
Yeah.
It is all about just inspiring them to get passionate about engaging with life. And George, that's such a simple sentence to say. That is so huge. And I thank you for doing the work to figure it out, and in beautifully laid out sentences, showing us how to be able to help our clients do that work, to get people passionately engaged with their life, their community, and the world.
Yeah.
That's got to be a force for good. That's surely, that times a worldwide movement, has got to be the way to go.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm excited about continuing to do the work, continuing to learn from you and your trainers, and learning from the doing, and helping more people just get passionate about engaging in their community, in their life, in their world.
I hope we can all become as passionate as you are, Amyr. Wonderful to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, George. I really appreciate the invitation.
Perhaps I'll see you. I'm coming to England tomorrow, in fact.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah, if you can be at the Life Planning Mastery, I'm going to be talking about mindfulness in a new way, I think.
Oh, fantastic. I'll do my utmost to make it. But in any case, I wish you safe travels and
Yeah.
very much look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you, George. All the best.
Bye.